All set. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Central Falls School District Board of Trustees meeting on this Tuesday, May 27th. It is now 5:34. We are here at Calcutt Middle School. I will call the meeting to order and start with attendance. Board Member Martinez.
Present.
Board Member Pagan.
Present.
Board Member Levasseur.
Present.
Board Member Evans.
Present.
Board Member Figueroa.
Present.
Board Member Bramson is here. We have a quorum. Before we jump to our public comment, I would like to propose a shift in our agenda. If there's no objection, we have an item under new business item 4C with a homeschool application that we were slated to take at the end of our agenda, but the individual making the petition is here, and I'm sure that they have other things that are more interesting than waiting for us to come out of executive session. So if there's no objection, I'd like to move that up to earlier into our agenda under public comment. Is there anyone? Okay, so we're going to do that. So our next item of business is public comment. We always invite individuals to provide comment to the Board of Trustees, whether that's in person or virtually. And do we have a sign-up list?
Do you mind grabbing that, Tiffany?
Yeah. This another?
Yeah, great.
Okay, can you bring it over, please? Taylor Miller, regarding the homeschool application. Welcome to the Central Falls School Board. Just to give you a reminder, if this is your first time doing it is. So we would love to hear from you. We would love to have you keep your comments to 3 minutes. There isn't an opportunity for us to respond or provide follow-up questions. It's just a one-way level of communication. So if we're not asking any follow-up, it's nothing that you're saying. Don't interpret it in any way. It's really a level of one-way communication that we're hearing from you. So welcome. You have your time begins now. We're pretty generous with time. So go ahead.
Give my child more individualized learning, tailored to her pace, her interests, and her needs. I feel like I can give her a better quality education one-on-one rather than her having to either catch up with the class or wait on the class. I do think she's a bit advanced for her age. I've kind of taught her everything a preschooler would know. She knows how to write her name. She knows a little bit of adding and subtracting and even multiplication. Also, I'd like to just kind of protect her from negative influences, I guess. I do have a stepdaughter that's in public school, so I've kind of seen some of that with peers. So peers is great. I'm not against public school if this doesn't work out. But yeah, I've already purchased a bunch of curriculum and she's super excited. And if I did anything wrong in my application, I'd love to be able to fix that. What you guys need from me, I'm willing to abide by all laws, all regulations. And yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anybody, Carlos, anybody signed up online for public comment? No. Okay. So with that, I will close public comment and we will move to our amended agenda item under new business item 4C. And I will turn it over to the superintendent to highlight the homeschool application and recommendation.
Great. So as you heard directly from Ms. Miller, she submitted an application that was very thorough about what she plans to use for materials and the laws specifically that she would be abiding by. And so it's my recommendation to support her application for homeschool for her daughter who will be in kindergarten next year.
Do I have a motion to imply or adhere to the superintendent's recommendation? Board Member Evans, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Martinez. Any questions? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in support signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any in negative? Any abstentions? I'm also an aye. The motion carries unanimously. Good luck, Ms. Miller. We're all rooting for you. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, that is executive session. I will ask for a motion from a board member, and in that, am I reading the public statement or is it part of the motion?
I believe you read the public statement and then A would
Perfect.
be,
Okay. And we're doing them all, we're going in executive session for all of them at once. So, attorney, am I doing this correctly?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so any individual being discussed in executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5, A1 has been given advance notice and an opportunity to have such discussion in open session. So now I would entertain a motion to go into executive session per the language listed in item A.
Motion to move to executive session.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to read the whole section A,
B, and C.
B, and C.
Consider and vote on motion to enter executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5, parentheses A, for personnel relating to the superintendent's performance evaluation, Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5, parentheses A, parentheses 1. Personnel relating to the participation hearing regarding certified teacher, Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5, parentheses A, parentheses 1, and legal advice related thereto. Personnel related to a recommendation to terminate employment relationship with a non-certified employee, Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5, parentheses A, parentheses 1, and legal advice related therefore.
Thank you. We have a motion to enter into executive session for these three items. Is there a second? Second. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote and to go in, signify by saying yes to go into executive session. Annette Martinez.
Yes.
Carol Pagan.
Yes.
Alicia Levasseur.
Yes.
Tom Evans.
Yes.
Sugo Figueroa.
Yes.
Andrew Bramson. Yes, we are now in executive session. Would it be your preference to do it here and move everybody out or go someplace else?
We can move since.
Okay, you're all settled and the temperature is a perfect 68. We're not going to make you go anywhere. And
That
we're,
allows the art teacher to continue setting up the art show.
and we will continue to do that. Half hour.
Yeah, 30.
I would say anytime between 6:15 and 6:30, we expect to adjourn back in public session. Okay. Okay. We are back. Thank you for those who patiently waited in person and online while the board did its executive session business. We are now convening in open session, and I will entertain a motion to seal the executive session minutes. Is there a motion? Motion made by Board Member Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Figueroa. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I am also an aye. The executive session minutes are sealed. Notification to public in compliance with Rhode Island General Law 42-46-4 and 5 as to the votes taken. There were two votes. There was one vote taken in executive session, and that vote was a unanimous vote by the Board of Trustees to approve a performance review of the superintendent, which was deemed a positive report. That is there's nothing flowery about it. The standard is it's a positive report, and it was based on a lot of outstanding survey data that we received. So that vote was taken. And with that, I will move on to our next agenda item of the consent agenda, which includes the Human Resources Memo Superintendent.
Yes, so you have a full page there for our update this month. A lot of new hires. We're expanding our pod program. So we were able to hire three new pod leaders this month, in addition to some more warrior fellows. So grateful that even at the end of the school year, we're building out the team. We did have a number of resignations. Most of those will be effective at the end of the school year. And I gave some additional context to the board related to confidential HR matters for the reasons for some of those, for context. And then as we get to this point in the year, as we sort out all the roles for next year, we're really grateful we didn't have to do any layoffs. So that's a huge, huge win. We did have to displace 5 teachers. However, that means they still will have a position, and they'll come on Thursday after school to our job fair or mutual consent process and get to bid into other positions in the district. I want to give a huge shout out to Deputy Superintendent Lynch, who is the mastermind behind all of this, figuring out what certs each person has, who's lowest in seniority, what open positions will we have that they would qualify for, and to have done this whole puzzle and ensured that no one was laid off was a huge feat. So we're really grateful for her leadership. And then just a few internal moves, which is always exciting to see people step into new expanded opportunities. So congratulations to both Jaime here at Calcut, and as well as Melissa Torres, who's been an incredible guidance secretary at the high school and is moving into the executive coordinator, so the head office role at the high school. So congrats to both of them, and love to see that they both wanted to stay in the schools where they are at, just with expanded job opportunities. And then one retiree announcement effective at the end of the school year, but want to thank Pam Noons for her service to the district.
Any questions? Okay. We have our next agenda item on the consent agenda is to approve the meeting minutes from April 15th. Seems so long ago. They're in your board packet under draft. And I will ask that Board Member Martinez abstain from the vote since she was absent from the meeting. She had an excused absence. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minute, but also there's a typo.
There is a typo. Ms. Board Figueroa, would you like to highlight the typo so it can be fixed? Where's the typo?
You got an additional last name.
I got it. It's somewhere. Where was it?
Figueroa, last name.
Yeah. Yes. I am finally what I've always wanted to be, which is part of the Figueroa familia. I will be. I should be voting against this amendment, but we're just going to make one technical change to change that. But with that technical change in mind, is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Board Member Evans. Is there a second? Second. Is all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The minutes carry. So we will now move on to new business. We did discuss from a discussion perspective in executive session a recommendation by the superintendent to terminate an employee relationship with a non-certified employee. I will entertain a motion from the board to concur with the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to vote on the superintendent's recommendation to terminate the employee relationship with a non-certified.
Is board member motion made by board member Figueroa? Is there a second? Second by Board Member Evans. Any discussion? Any questions? All those in the affirmative signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I am also an aye. That motion carries. We did have a agenda item item 4B. As you all know, that this agenda was published in accordance with the open meetings law all on Thursday, which seems like a lifetime ago. And based on a report from the superintendent, she has indicated that action on this particular item is proceeding without the need for any board action. So we will not be, we don't need to consider it. And so therefore we won't be voting on that particular item. Moving along, we have the superintendent's update. Superintendent.
Great. And we're actually going to start with 5B. So we are going to get a wonderful update on access and how our multilingual learners are doing in their English language proficiency. So it's going to be a combination of hearing from Director Hare as well as Director Beltram. We have a clicker here if that's helpful.
Welcome.
Hello.
I always love assessment summaries.
Well, we have one today, just for you. All right, so we're going to go through our access test results. Students tested in the access at around January, February time, and the results just came out a couple weeks ago. This is the test that measures English language proficiency. Okay, sorry, it looks like we're on a little delay with this here. Oh,
Who's driving here?
I will drive. Hang on. Just going back a little bit. All right, is this not working? Is that why? I'm gonna click.
I can do it.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Doesn't seem to be working from there. Thank you. Can you back to this slide before this? Okay. So the purpose of this presentation is to understand test performance, identify growth trends, and highlight areas for celebration and improvement. We will look at both the ELP, which is RIDE's measure of English language proficiency. They have specific targets that they set for students. We'll look at disaggregated data, and then we'll look at language domains. So the first we'll look at ELP targets. What are they? How have they changed? Why do they matter? Who has them? We're going to skip E and F today. So the ELP indicator is from RIDE, and basically this is an indicator that measures the progress of our multilingual learners toward English language proficiency. It's based on research. RIDE calculates it and puts it out for each student individually, and then they also use that to calculate like a school and district's proportion of progress overall towards overall English language proficiency, which counts towards accountability. So previously, RIDE had a ELP target that was a linear target, and language growth does not happen in a linear fashion. So if you look at this graph in the bottom right-hand corner, the growth that they see is the blue line, and that's years of service. So kids with just starting out in MLL, if they have 1 year of service, they have more growth. If they've been a long-term multilingual learner and they have something like 7 years of growth, 7 years of services, their growth is lower. The light orange at the top was the old target. The dark orange in the middle is the new target. So you can see basically this shows us the new targets are rigorous, yet also realistic. So why do they matter? They matter for progress monitoring for students. At the school level, you can monitor trends in ELP growth. And then at the district level, it allows us to monitor ELP target achievement, and that's factored into accountability. So who has them? Overall, about 72% of our students have targets. The students without targets are either those who are new to the state and they have not taken an access test before, or kindergartners because that's their first year taking access as well. So we can look at who met our targets or who met the targets from RIDE. Overall, 39% of our students were meeting the targets. More students in elementary met the targets compared to fewer students in secondary. A bright spot here, you can see that 71% of students at ELA risk met their ELP target set by RIDE, which is great. And we don't have state averages to compare them to yet, but we'll have that once the state releases more data. So if we look at who met the ELP targets compared to last year, one important note to make is that we can't compare beyond last year because they calculated the targets differently. So we'll think of last year as a baseline. You can see that at 3 of our schools, the ELP attainment increased. At 3 of the schools, it decreased. But I will point out, even at places like Raíces, where it decreased a bit, the numbers for this year still align with the numbers at other schools. So it was kind of like they were higher last year. You can go to the next slide, please. So now we'll look at subgroups. And again, when we're talking about these ELP targets, it's just important to know that we're only talking about 72% of our test takers. So this one is ELP target attainment by years of service. This graph right here shows this is where we have 67% of our test takers are in their first through third year of service. This is just 1/3 of our test takers. And you can just kind of see like how this changes overall. So yes, while we do have, 39.4% of people with, while we have 27% of students with 12 years of service meeting their target, it's only 3 students out of 11. Here we're talking out of like a 108 out of 260. So it's a big difference. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this one, this is the same data as the last slide. It's just summed up into non-long-term ELL students and long-term ELL students. So our non-LTELs achieve their targets at about 42%, and our LTELs achieve their targets at about 33%. And now to see, we're looking at ELP growth of the overall scaled score and years of service. So this graph basically shows us that in general, growth is declining as the years of service increases. So the bottom is the number of years that a student has been serviced in multilingual learning services. And then the side is how much they grew in their scaled score on the test. So you can see it's generally going down. The blue lines in the middle of all those boxes is the median growth. So that's kind of like what you can use to compare to the other years of service. So essentially, growth declines as the years of service increases, and then the range of growth also appears to decrease as well. So aside from growth by years of service, we also looked at growth by language spoken at home. When we're looking at target achievement, the goals are met at about the same rate, around 39%. But then when we look at growth separated out, just as growth, not just for the kids with targets, we see that students who speak Spanish at home on average are gaining more year over year. And then students with Portuguese and Portuguese Creole at home have more mixed results. This one, yeah, has I think a few. You can click
Click away, Carlos.
and then click one more. Okay, and stay there. So this is looking at our students with disabilities who are also identified as multilingual learners or students with dual identification. Students who are duly identified versus multilingual learners seem to meet their ELP targets at similar rates, which was surprising to me. Generally, we see a discrepancy here, so I wanted to dig into this a little bit more just to see what else we could learn. So if you click 2 more times, 1 and 2 more. So when we look at this data, we see that MLLs with IEPs appear to perform about the same as MLLs without disabilities. And then click again, again, there we go. So this is LTELs with IEPs do not consistently over or underperform compared to LTELs with IEPs. So our LTELs duly identified and not are performing about the same. And then the last slide here will show like more of a difference. And this is actually our students who are duly identified and have 1 to 3 years of multilingual language services are actually outperforming students with just an MLL identification. So we're seeing higher growth on average and also a wider range of growth for students who are duly identified. You can go to the next, please. Thank you. So this is target attainment and growth and C3 participation, something that we monitor since it's a program that we're proud of and also investing a lot of money in. So students who are not in C3 meet their target at about a rate of 36%. Students who are in C3 meet their target at about 57%, which is a big difference there. Again, this is not telling us any causal relationship. We can't say this program causes that increase. There's a group that we're working with who's looking more into that, and they can say that there's an 80% chance that participating in the program increases your score by 2 points more than a kid who's not in the program, which seems like a minimal difference, but it still is a difference and something that we're looking more into. This is what I just described here. And lastly, we're going to look at language domains and scaled score growth. So the access test is divided up into reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So it's important to see if students are performing differently in any of these domains compared to others. And some students show incredible growth, up to 200 scaled score points in a year. There's less variation in reading scores, meaning students grow more similarly to each other. There's a wide variation of growth in speaking, meaning they score dissimilarly from each other. And then students at the 25th percentile. So again, if we had 100 kids and we look at just the first 25, that 25th kid generally is slightly regressing, has a little bit of losing points instead of gaining. So that's something that we want to look at and increase. Language domains and scaled score growth. So this is growth by domain in years of service. We can see, again, this just shows in all of the domains, students with fewer years of service are growing more. I don't have my glasses on, but I think this is the same. It might have changed the year. Can you go back one? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that's 24 to 25. And then if we go to the next one, this is 23 to 24. And then I probably also put 22 to 23. And this was just showing that these patterns that we see from this last year of growth have pretty much persisted across the years. And then the last thing we'll note here is not directly related to access testing, but is sort of related because it has to do with speaking multiple languages. So this year, RIDE is introducing including the seal of biliteracy into data for accountability on our school and district report cards. And Christina Sanchez Serrano, our CTE director, has worked really hard to make sure students are taking and performing well on this seal of biliteracy test. So we had 24 students demonstrate proficiency in English, and then we have 11 students who scored a silver on a world language, 12 who got gold on a world language, and then we have 9 who have silver for seal of biliteracy and 7 with gold seal of biliteracy. And you might be able to add a little bit more context to that, but basically Christina was telling me that this will increase next year because we have more students who are entering into AP Spanish, and that is one way to show this proficiency. So she expects it to be about 40 students next year, where it was 24 this year. And I believe that is all. We can either do questions about the data and then go to Tiffany, but Tiffany's also going to provide context to some of the things we're doing with this. So I'm not sure what you prefer.
I would love to hear from Tiffany, and then we can ask questions and have a discussion in its totality. Tiffany, welcome.
You can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to give the board like an update of what we've done this school year. Everyone is aware that we do have new MLL regulations that were just put in place. We've been working really hard to come up with what we need to do with those regulations. So this year was very focused on the current state of where we are and what we need to do to improve. And I'm happy to say that we're actually in a really good place. There are just some changes that we would like to make next year, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So ultimately, we have increased some of our supports with the MLL team. It originally was myself and Joanna, but we added an assistant MLL director, and she's here. This is Sarah Correa.
Welcome.
So she came to introduce herself. So here she is. We also
Longtime teacher in the district,
Yeah.
so hired
16
internally.
years. We also added a Cape Verdean family liaison. That person is 50% working with families with the FACE team and 50% working with students with testing and supporting some of the things that responsibilities that I'm asked her to help with. We also added an MLL, Students with Disability Data Specialist, and that person is responsible of helping us like put the data into different platforms and such, and she has other responsibilities with students with disabilities team. So that again is a 50-50 role. As you've heard a little bit about CETA-3, we are very proud of that. This year we provided over 200 newcomers dedicated English language development support, which currently during the school day is a little scattered. Some students are getting that support, some are not. And when I say dedicated English language development, that is with a curriculum with speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So it's not just ELA, it's really targeting that language. And then I listed some professional development and PLCs that we did this year. So we talked about content and language objectives. We had a consultant come in to talk more about accelerated learning through Oracy. We had a PGG connected to MLL strategies with Elevation, and that was also a PLC that I ran. We met with small groups of case managers for special education teachers to support what they can do in IEP meetings, but also how to write different parts on the IEP. We also piloted an English language development curriculum in elementary, which we are planning to implement for next school year. So I just wanted to celebrate some of the exited students that we have. I can't say enough how thankful I am for Janelle for all of the hard work she put in. But we have exited 43 students this school year, which is pretty significant. I know Calcat was very excited because that number 5 might seem small, but it was definitely a jump from last year. So Ellerisk is at 15, Vets is at 9. Rice is lower is 8, Rice is upper is 2, Calcut is 5, and Central Falls High School is 4. There is also a potential that 46 more students may exit. And when I say may exit, if a student has a 4.5 to a 4.7, they could exit if they took RICAS, PSAT, or SAT, and they meet and exceed that. So this wouldn't count like our K-2 students. This is strictly just our 3 and up. So we have a significant number of students that potentially could pass in the fall, which is really exciting as well. Just promoting English language development through everything that we're doing. This school year, right before Access started, many schools chose to do coffee hours or parent nights. Some did it on their own, and I was invited. I presented some, and what we did was we had a conversation around what is access for families. Calcut in particular had like over like 50, 60 people in the room. It was beautiful, and Jackie, our assistant principal, presented that. And I do want to shout her out because she actually wrote personalized notes for every single student in 3 languages on little sticky notes before they took the access. And I just thought that was just a sentiment of the dedication that we have with our team. Besides that, I know Ellerisk, as you know, had some significant gains. And I would say part of that reason is because of the encouragement that teachers gave them. They had a pep rally and the kids were like jumping and screaming and all happy. They had pretty crowns on, so that was exciting. And there's also some other things happening in the next few weeks. We are celebrating exited students. Ellerisk will be having a dinner. Veterans will be having a celebration this week during the school day. And some students will be getting medals or trophies or certificates to really celebrate what it means to be a multilingual learner and make achievements. So some schools are choosing to do English language proficiency levels, some schools are choosing exited, and some schools are choosing level 4.0 or higher. Besides that, some things we're thinking about for next school year is really continuing the work that we've already started. but also progress monitoring. This current year, we were using TEL and Summit K-12, and that progress monitoring was only twice during the year. So it's once at the beginning and once at the end. Only C-3 students were able to do progress monitoring during the school year with TEL. So come next year, any student who is an MLL will have multiple opportunities for the progress monitoring, so we can do more data dives and one-on-one data chats with students to really increase that English language proficiency growth. We also will be having 2 pre-K bilingual classes at Hunt, which is really exciting. And we are anticipating an MLL coach at the high school. As we know, it is a need to support teachers to help them scale. And just a little bit more on C-3 and just shining this. Again, I can't thank my teachers enough for all the hard work that they did this year with students. And it wasn't just all academics. It was also like experiencing new things while learning language. So this is a picture of a CalCut group, but high school also did this activity where they walked to the library and they received a library card. And for these students, it was the first time they had ever been there. A group decided to go to the diversity garden and just work on language skills outside because it was a nice day. Raices chose to do a family paint night and pizza night where they invited the parents in and they had to listen to the directions and paint their own picture. So that was great as well. So currently C-3 is a dedicated English language development program for levels 1.0 to 2.9. As we know, the regulations has changed and we really feel that our levels that are higher in developing and emerging, expanding, also need that support. So come next year, we will be expanding that. We will be changing the name from C-3 to MLL Enrichment. Also in the summer will be MLL Enrichment, where both the summer and the school year, we will be extending that program for levels 1.0 to 4.7. We are hoping for next school year to have a designated ELD class for the after school program for our long-term MLLs to really target those students to hopefully help them reach that 4.8. And some other strategies that we're hoping to do. A lot of these things are already in place, but we're going to continue to grow our teachers' capacity using high quality curriculum materials. The materials are hard. So what we really want to do is provide them guidance through coaching or through professional development so that we can integrate that language into that content instruction to reach their fullest potential. We are also providing a dedicated English language development block for every student K to 12 from level 1.0 to 3.9, which is a huge gain for our district. As we can see through C-3, the potential that we have, we're basically taking that program and now providing it for every child during the school day. Students between a 4.0 to a 4.7 will be able to participate in integrated language content instruction. There may be opportunities for after school program, or if there's opportunities where we want to provide that additional support and it fits in their schedule, we can also provide English language development classes for those long-term MLLs.
Okay, thank you very
Yeah.
much, Tiffany. A lot of information. Questions for either Janelle or Tiffany?
I have a
Board
question.
Member Evans, please.
What's the projected growth of students? I know we say 221 for C-3. What's the projected goal of students that we want that are going to be enrolled in the new MLL program that are going to potentially take the test? Is that going to be 300, 400, 500?
For next school year?
Yeah.
That all depends on funding.
Okay.
Right now, our MLL funding, don't have it yet. We'll know like sometime like June, July. we do have some grants that will help support that as well, but as soon as we know, we will let you know.
Questions?
More
Board
of a,
Member Pagan, please.
more of a comment. According to Janelle, I mean, the data showed that catching them early within the first 4 years of language immersion is showing that we're getting the most kids to exit at a higher rate, right? So just wondering how we can capitalize on that data to maximize the number of students that are exiting within those 4 years, as opposed to having the issue of the long-term health. And even though there's not a lot of them, because when you look at the senior, like the kids in senior high school, it's not a lot, but you never want ever else.
Yeah.
You know, it's so tricky. But Janelle, thank you for the data. It was really interesting, and I would love to hear more about your thoughts about what you think is happening with our dually identified students and the phenomenal growth that they're showcasing. That's amazing, and usually that's not what we see. Question about the high quality instructional material that you're going to be using. Is it the same that you're using for the after school program?
So the high quality curriculum material is what every student in Central Falls will be using.
Okay,
So it is our study sync, our
Okay.
ARC.
okay.
So what we want to do is we understand that for some students, especially newcomers, that is very hard. So what we want to do is provide support with coaching and with professional development to help teachers understand how to infuse language to build that content knowledge.
Okay.
So that's the plan for next school year.
And then one more question. Does the progress monitoring tool that everybody's going to use now twice a year, does that look similar to the Access platform?
Yeah, so I actually did compare, our CEVA-3 students took it around December and then they took Access around January. I compared it. It was almost identical.
Oh, great.
So it was nice to see that comparison. So it breaks it down into scaled score, and it's pretty accurate. It's not 100%.
The items look similar?
The items look similar,
Okay.
and then they would take it at, if they can take it up to 8 times, depending on the student, depending on how each level or how teachers want to.
That gets tricky too, because you don't want to over test
Correct.
kids. But I do like the fact that the platform mimics so that students are at least familiar with more than one time seeing the platform.
One of the pieces that I know Janelle mentioned about speaking specifically, speaking is very tricky for students because they have to talk into a microphone and then they talk to a computer, and that's really awkward. So a lot of students will have a low score. So by providing them multiple opportunities for that particular test, we're hoping to see a growth, and that's part of that progress monitoring.
Great, that was mostly what I was thinking about, that specific part. Thank you, that's great.
Board Member Figueroa, please.
Is there a reason why we are not providing that access program to like Robinson Central Falls High School? I see just 3 schools here, or maybe I missed. Like Ella Reed,
CEVA-3?
yeah, the access program, Yeah.
So we provide it for all
all the
schools
schools.
except Hunt, because Hunt, they don't have MLL yet. So we haven't come up with a plan for them at this time. But every school, so if I might have put Calcutt, but it's for Calcutt and Raices Upper. They're housed in the same school, so that might be why, but every school has it. So I actually.
Particular slide you were looking at?
As I don't know what page is that. I don't know if you can see. Yes, it's on that page. I see only Ella Reed, Raices,
Oh, I
and
think just some photos that were highlighted.
yeah.
I think they're just photos. It was a smattering of
probably
photos.
Okay, just
Yeah.
provide- I just
Yeah.
want to know if, because I didn't hear about.
I just,
Uh-huh.
I happen to get pictures of those particular schools,
Oh.
but I will say that, what we have in there in those
You
pictures,
got,
it happened in other schools as well.
yeah, but I didn't hear about Hunt and the, okay, thank you.
One question. in my spare time, sometimes I like to look at Central Falls data and then hide the schools and see if I can guess which school is which, whether it's for chronic absenteeism or something like this. I would have been wrong when it comes to Ella Risk and Raices this year. Tell me why give me some insight as to, is this just if you've seen 1 year of data, you've seen 1 year of data, is that the answer? Or is there something else going on from your perspective, Tiffany?
Perspective, just thinking about LRS, I was thinking about the numbers of CETA-3 specifically. So the participation rate for CETA-3 at LRS is 73 students. Compared to Rice's lower, there's only 16, and Rice's upper had 0 this year. So even though it was offered to Rice's upper, there were no students that actually participated this year. That was one piece. And just to piggyback on the fact that Calca also made a raise, they were our second highest participation rate, which is that 55. I'm also thinking about Raices specifically. As we know, dual language programs promotes both languages at the same time. And when we were looking at the data a little closer, we were noticing that there were 6 students at Raices lower that missed the ELP target by 1 or 2 points. So that was one piece, but the other piece is a lot of our Raices upper and lower students already are higher with ELP. So it's harder to continue to meet that target when you're a level 3 or 4. And when we looked at the data, that's where they are. The other thing that I was thinking about is Raices also has lower numbers. So if like 1 or 2 students kind of fall, especially Raices upper, I think there was 35 students that had an ELP target. Just 1 or 2 students is going to bring that percentage down.
Okay. I think I know the answer, but I'll ask just the same. Do we know anything about language spoken at home by 1 parent, 2 parents relative to students that are participating? I mean, we know that they are L's by virtue of the fact that they're in this program, but we don't know anything about English language exposure outside of school. Is that correct?
So we do track that with the home language survey as students are registering. So I don't have like an actual like percentage or number, but we do track that for every student.
Is that done annually, or is that just at?
That is done at registration when they first arrive.
So it's only once. So
Correct.
whether or not that changes or persists is something that's unknown.
That could be something that we can look into. I'm not sure what the initial paperwork beginning of the school year looks like, but that's something we can definitely look into.
I don't know, just curious to know. Okay. Board Member Evans, you had your hand up, or no, you're just, any other questions? Superintendent, anything you want to weigh in on here? Because we've spent,
Big thanks
Yeah.
to the team.
can you just highlight, and not to jump into the fiscal 2026 budget, obviously CETA-3 had a large infusion of ESSER money,
Yes.
which is gone.
Yep.
My sense is that the changes that have been made around MLL categorical have done enough to make sure that we have been able to sustain the work that we're doing here, and that going forward, as there is still much work to do, we will not be fighting against the tide of reduced funding.
From your lips to whoever's.
No, but that's your expectation.
That is the hope. We are still waiting on federal, state, and local funding to be set. So, Carrie's gonna do his best to tell you what we're working with, but we're obviously, nothing's determined just yet.
Currently not happening is a lot of our students are not getting that dedicated English language development in school. It is in pockets. That will be happening for students next year. So what we're planning on doing is taking all the things that we've learned from CETA-3 and giving that opportunity for all students.
Yeah.
Because it was only that handful before. So regardless what our funding looks like, we are in a good place to make sure that our students are going to thrive next year. So that after-school program is truly enrichment. It's in addition to.
Yeah.
And one more question. You told us the number of students who met their ELPs. Do we know how many schools met their target?
That will come out when RIDE releases more about accountability.
Okay,
But I'm not sure like how they're gonna be calculating that yet.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for this report and your time and your efforts. It's much appreciated. Moving right along. Yeah. The only reason why it's light out because it's late in the season here.
All right, we're gonna move into. the
Uh, budget stuff. Let's wrap it on up with budget the best. Director Simmons, welcome.
Board Chair, board members, superintendent, CF community. Thank you for having me this evening. I am going to provide an update to the last budget forecast for FY '26. You can go one more slide. So see what it says in terms of the slide, but in sentence form, keep it short. The purpose of the budget is to forecast and manage our financial resources to support educational programs, covering our necessary costs, which are personnel, having materials, maintaining our buildings, with the purpose of maximizing our student learning while they're with us. I do want to give a thank you to the entire district, specifically those in always thanking the teachers, but those who I work directly with the most, which are administration, for being prudent with the finances, for understanding when no is no. Also for tech shops a lot of deals, operations, they shop a lot of deals to make the dollars go a lot further. So while I am glad to report, as the superintendent said, that we didn't have to come say that we're projecting deficit, we're looking towards layoffs. FY '26 is pretty much what we kind of predicted, a real place of uncertainty. Slide. So as you can see, our normal budgets basically they go the same way, and the only time that they change is if the climate changes or if there's something pretty catastrophic going on, or a new initiative that we're trying to innovate within the district. So as we typically have said, salary and benefits take up about 71% of our budget. With the most money obviously going to teachers. This is our biggest populace, and it's the reason why the students are here. They're here to be taught so that they can learn. And within professional and technical services, we need registered nurses, whether or not that's within the school or if they are supporting our, I don't want to say special needs, but those who need additional help. Property and services for FY '26, I'm going to put an asterisk around that. That is going to go up. Obviously, we're building a new high school. It's a bigger space. So as we're going out to bid, we expect that to go up by 5 to 6%, whereas a normal contract when we're going out to bid will go up 3%. For other purchase services and tuition, those typically run around $4 million in terms of charter schools. It remains the same right now. What we don't know, because of enrollment, because of school choice, whether or not people are going at the last minute try to go to a private school, as that's being pushed from the federal level. Our enrollment is in flux, so we know that. What RIDE is doing to help to preserve certain districts like ours that have a number of students who come in and out, they're not penalizing us whether or not our enrollment goes up or goes down. They're looking at it and they're doing a year later. If the enrollment goes down, they'll decrease some of the funding. If it goes up, it'll pretty much remain how it is right now. Supplies, that's our normal stuff around here, books and paper and paper clips and copy paper and all that good stuff. And you can also within supplies, in terms of how it's viewed from a finance standpoint, we are also able to buy textbooks, not just curriculum, under the textbook category. For property and equipment, this is new for us. We've been fortunate to have a lot of grants, and I'll get into where E-rate is going for that. And we've been fortunate to, whether or not it was through the COVID funding, be able to get a lot of our technology within a district and have it fully funded and not touch the budget. I don't expect that for FY26. Next slide. This is the real slide that I wanted to bring attention to, that change from the last one. So through my meeting with RIDE, I've come to learn that Rue and I need to work and talk with the city, but we're expected to receive about $443,000 from the city this year, as the structure between the city and the district kind of evolves. So that is
Really?
funding that I did not anticipate. Also, with the governor's recommended aid, typically what happens is that the governor makes a proposal, RIDE kind of counter proposal, makes a case for the district. And so we're up, if voted on by the House, for an additional $1.3 million that we weren't expected to see for this year, which is what's going to put us at a baseline, not to be at a deficit, not to put us over, but that's a baseline. What's nice is that the multilingual learners stays fixed at $3.1 million. I will talk about that, so I'll put a pin in that when we get to some of the uncertainty. But for federal grants, initially when I spoke with the trustees and the community, at that point in time, RIDE was saying you may want to skew by about 10%. But with all the talk that's going on, we're skewing at 15%. We've been encouraged to move from 10% to 15%. So that could be a reduction to us of $215,000. So that if it's not coming from the grant, then it's coming from the general fund. So that kind of puts us in a precarious situation. Next slide, please. So these are the assumptions that we have, and it's this first one is an assumption that you'll see in the three-tiered model that I'm presenting tonight for our budget proposal. But RIDE has within that $1.2 million that we will receive the student success factor, moving from 40% to 43%. That is not voted on as of yet. So for me, that's an upside assumption. That's if we get it, great. Can't work off of ifs, kind of in my world. So I'm saying if we get it, that's great. We're continuing to do our quarterly grant reimbursement. RIDE is also asking us to do that. And the change is with the grant funding. They're moving to a new platform, but also that new platform creates a different sense of visibility for funds that we've had historically. And with the federal landscape doing what they're doing and DOGE doing what they're doing, they're saying, if you haven't used funds, you don't need it. So what they're doing is they're doing a FIFO, which is a first in, first out for us, to make sure that we grab all and we utilize and they're working with us to budget all of our grants so that we use it up and it's not taken away and we use it prudently. Go back one. So as I said, the high school is going to have additional costs. Utilities, again, is going to go up.
Director, can I stop you?
Of course you can.
On the previous slide where you talk about the potential local revenue, the 443, can you just go back a slide, Kyla? are you, is that 443 with the big asterisk, is that being, where is that reflected in your assumptions on the next slide? Are you assuming that that money's happening?
That is a conversation that I had. That's a conversation I need to have with the city.
But in terms of what
We're-
you're presented
We're
in,
not assuming that it's there. We're being told it will likely be, but are operating as though it might not.
so what you're telling me is that what you're showing here is revenue minus of, that doesn't include $443,000.
That is correct.
Not that it's, if it doesn't come from the local, it will come from the state?
I don't think the state is saying that.
There, that's not,
Okay, so it's
That's
so it's not in the assumption, it's a number, it's sort of like a grant that we've applied for that we don't know whether we're gonna get.
Correct.
So it's not, it's here on this slide, but it's not in the assumption.
it's not in a calculated assumption.
Okay.
And for the bottom line, that, or the detail that I sent out,
In terms of the base,
that is
the
correct.
base. Okay,
That is correct.
And for context, just want to make sure everyone knows next month you all will vote on the budget. So even though we have all these question marks, I asked Carrie to come and just present the updated info so that you're continually informed before next month's vote.
Well, when will you know about that local government plan?
By next month, I'll probably know within a week or so.
Okay.
So before we vote,
I get the sense that it's tied to some of the legislative.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what it's tied to.
yeah, and I don't and I think that it's hard to make predictions, especially about the future. Even if the legislative even if the legislative session were to conclude, it's not clear to me that what action or lack of action that would be taken would necessarily result in a direct answer one way or the other. I think that this could still be very much an unresolved issue as we are asked to vote on this budget. I think we just need to be prepared for that.
is that 443,000 make or break? It's not, right? We're still,
No.
without that, the budget still stays.
That is correct.
Okay.
But I mean, I think it's fair to say we have a lot of things in limbo. So like we have
Right.
delayed finalizing either of our collective bargaining agreement negotiations because we just don't know what the budget is. So it's hard to say, yes, we can give this percentage increase to each union when we just don't know exactly what we're operating with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we took a pause on some negotiations because it wasn't fair to keep bringing them to the table without more budget certainty.
But I think it's worth just highlighting, I think most people know, this 443 just isn't a number that was pulled out of the air or some number that was determined by us. This is a number that typically came through the state educational aid formula, which based on legislative and budget proposals has been pulled out of what normally would have been in the state education aid and is being asked of the local government to provide that money. Am I stating that correctly? Okay, so this isn't like this isn't like Director Simmons is just deciding to pick a number that says, oh, I think this is what the local government should contribute. It is a result of a process that is currently ongoing. Or go back to, so talk about expenses, please. The assumptions, yeah, you can just go through the assumptions on, because I interrupted you after the assumptions on revenue. Can you just walk us through the assumptions on expenses?
Okay, to recap, our expenses will increase for the high school, bigger footprint. We said that our utilities will go up 4.5% to 5% versus a normal CPI of 3%.
Maybe, did you say this already?
We sort of
Yes.
embedded in.
Sorry,
I think we
yeah,
covered a lot of
Okay,
it, yeah.
okay. But we don't have any assumptions for increased personnel costs associated with unresolved contracts. There's nothing in this. We have contracts that are expiring at the end of August.
Yep.
And we haven't made any assumptions for compensation adjustments for those.
We have also not wanted to share that very publicly since we're still negotiating.
Okay, but we haven't, but there's nothing built into this budget.
No, I would say that's not accurate.
Okay.
Carrie is definitely, we know there will be increases. We
Okay.
just don't know yet how high we could offer
There's,
because we
there's,
don't have.
there's enough variability. Thank you.
Next one. Okay, if we could do this, so what's unpredictable as of right now that directly affects us? E-rate. E-rate's based on the National School Lunch Program, metrics within the district. So what's being discussed at the federal level is that constitutional, urban versus rural area? So we don't know what our E-rate will be this year. MLL is being questioned off a race-based preference of funding. So even though that 3.1 million, that's why I said it, I put an asterisk to a pin there myself. Even though that 3.1 million remains the same, we don't know what's going to happen at the federal level. As I spoke earlier about school choice being promoted, it may have a domino effect, which could affect our funding for the following. Next slide, please. So I will say we may be right back here at the same point next month. But I wanted to point this out, which is, I think our best bet, whether or not it's this month or next month, that's just me in my shoes. What we are expected to receive next year is $55.4 million, including the student success factor.
Okay.
That is an upside. I'm going off the base case saying that we may not receive it. So in your packets, you saw the detail, but over here is a summary. Mostly everything remains the same, except when you get to the budgetary reserve. What I use as a budgetary reserve on the upside is the student success factor. And that can be used for teachers, that can be used for administration, that can be used for curriculum, but you're talking about $600 and something thousand, which really doesn't go that far. If let's just say if we hired 5 outstanding teachers that we wanted to bring within a district, it's gone. So that's the upside case. The downside case says that if we do lose 15% of our grant funding, that's going to have to be absorbed by the general fund. So if that's absorbed by the general fund, then you see that our costs are escalated. I basically took what our average per category here within grants and scaled back 15% of that, and we would be at a deficit of pretty much $1 million. If that is the case, then that's a conversation that, of course, we would bring with you. But that's something that we would have to hammer out, the superintendent, myself, and those who weigh in on the circumstance to present back what it would look like for the district, whether or not we're talking about layoffs or furloughs or whatever. All that to say is we don't know. We just don't know. My recommendation is to allow us to have a tiered budget that's voted on and based off of what the federal guidelines tell us. We come back and tell you which one we are using, and if there's a material change within a category, what that change would be. Outside of that, as of right now, we just don't know. So it's a plan. It's a plan based off of the information that we will have at some point.
Board Member Pagan first, then Board Member Figueroa second.
That plan take into account the potential increase in costs at the high school.
Yes, it takes into the account the high school jumps in here in terms of property services. We have some of it built in here in terms of salaries and benefits. So it does take into cost.
Before Board Member Figueroa, if I may, with regard to that particular question, so obviously we're gonna have expenses associated with operating the new high school.
Correct.
What sort of legacy operating costs are there going to be for maintaining the old high school, even though it's not being used as a high school? I assume that building is still gonna have to be heated while, while we're not there, and who shares the responsibility of those expenses once Central Falls High School is on Higginson Avenue as opposed to Summer Street?
So these are certainly active discussions with the school building committee and with the city directly, though they are also represented on the school building committee. But we are restarting conversations about the second new school. So the dual language pre-K to 8 that would be on the site of the new high school. So nothing is set in stone yet, but it would very likely be that as soon as we are not having students in the current Central Falls High School, that it would be torn down.
We're not using that high school building for nothing.
We can't.
No, we're not, but we still have some type of operating,
There might be a short window.
a short window of operating expense within this school year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but what's not in your equation is the fact that you're probably paying to heat the equivalent of 2 high schools from January to April next year.
Hmm.
Well, that's why the CPI goes to 5 to
Right.
6% versus 3.
Okay,
Mm.
Mhm.
thank you. Board Member Figueroa.
A couple of questions on the budget breakdown. On the property services, I see 300,000 for utilities. And then under supplies, electricity, 341,000, and heating, 247,000. That's
For the question,
should be,
Good question.
because it say utility, so it's, electricity, so why we have two different
under,
amount under budget, on page, oh, it doesn't have,
Yeah.
the budget
Maybe
breakdown, this one,
That was
Correct,
like
it's on
the
screen.
main that you like this.
33, page
system.
33,
so,
oh, yeah,
can you go back to it?
32, I think.
Budget
Or is
breakdown.
it the
Page
plus?
32. 32.
You might have
Oh,
duplicated.
that is, again, this is UCOA coding.
Uh-huh.
That is our Cox business lines for the district.
Yeah, that's it. Utilities is non-electric, it's beyond electric and
Okay,
heating.
Wi-Fi.
Okay, the second one is on, under funding sources. No, wait, hold on, let me see. Other considerations. So you said we don't know about E-rate, right? We don't know when that's gonna be and how much.
That is correct.
Usually that is like in November, something like that, right? November, December.
That's when we would apply. So most federal funding moves along the lines of September, October, November. Food services in terms of applications, your E-rate, locking into what your enrollment will be. I mean, not here in Rhode Island, but typically that's how it moves. What they're looking at is the structure of the formula. And that formula may change. If that formula changes, then it changes how much we will receive in their E-rate, how much we can use that to get reimbursed for the different type of services that tech goes out and.
Yeah, and everything's just
Yeah.
delayed by a few months at least. So for example, like Title I, Title II, Title III, IDEA, we don't have any of those numbers yet, whereas normally we would have had them months ago. So even the, parenthetical of May under funding sources, it's not going to be May unless it happens in the next few days. Like we still don't have any of those, and RIDE doesn't have them either. So they keep just asking for us to be patient, but a process that would normally happen in the spring will have to happen during the summer where we, propose how we would use those federal funds, but hopefully there will be federal funds to invest.
Thanks.
Other questions? Please, Board Member Evans.
Yes, sir.
What are other school districts doing in regards, because honestly, we're not the only school district that's facing this. Correct?
No.
Are they voting on budgets or are they waiting?
No, they're different. They have a huge difference.
Yeah.
They have a tax
Yeah, they have a
base
tax piece, correct.
and they're voting. So we're on a trickle down effect, right? So the state, if their budget gets cut, then what the state could be giving us, that shortens. also a part of RIDE, right?
Yeah.
So if it's a trickle down effect, so we're on the back end. Normally, for those who haven't seen this process, sometimes we haven't gotten our finalized numbers until August. Like, we're literally getting the number, and then I'm going to meet with RIDE Finance about projecting out the following year. So I'm not trying to snowball you. I'm not trying to make this bigger than what it is. It's like, this is the latest of information that we've had with the most uncertain.
The questions? We look forward to seeing you in June.
Got it.
Thank you. So there are a few more superintendent updates, but recognizing you all have been at this for multiple hours, so I'll.
Still light out, still
be
light out,
concise.
still light out.
So at the last board meeting, in the April meeting, there were a few questions that came up related to CTE, FAFSA, and pre-K attendance. So wanted to follow up on those questions. So first, board member Evans had asked about the number of students participating in CTE. So this gives you both the breakdown by different CTE pathway, but it shows that about 65% of our students at Central Falls High School are engaging in those pathways, which is really exciting. The question from board member Pagan about FAFSA, we did follow up, and RIDE has a dashboard so we can see our updates daily. But in the end, I think the discrepancy came from the number of college acceptances versus the number of students who had actually applied. And so when we look at the number of students who applied, though they might have applied to multiple schools, hence the bigger acceptance number, every student who has applied and been accepted to college did apply for FAFSA. So that number is almost matched. And then thank you, Janelle, for doing this analysis on Captain Hunt attendance. So we can see that in fact, sorry, I'm gonna have to look at my own side. The angle's just a little funny. So we have a few graphs here broken down both by the class type, and both the average daily attendance on the left as opposed to chronic absenteeism on the right. So the question's really centered around the chronic absenteeism, so those blue bars, and you'll see that the highest rates of chronic absenteeism are in our half-day programs, with the highest being our self-contained afternoon program, whereas the lowest chronic absenteeism, so the most attendance is coming from the Rhode Island pre-K classrooms, which are those full day programs. All right. We've also been consistently updating the board and the community on enrollment and attendance shifts since the inauguration. We're actually up in enrollment this month, so that was a positive, as we've sort of wondered and even worried about attendance, or I'm sorry, enrollment decreasing. And then with respect to attendance, we still have schools continuing to hold improved rates of chronic absenteeism from the previous year. So Ella, Vets, and Calcut all are still trending toward overall improvement. And so we're really pleased to see that. I know before the meeting officially started, there were lots of questions around principal recruitment. We are being patient for the right leader. Our first round yielded about 15 submissions. We interviewed 4 of those candidates, but none were the exact fit. So we reposted, and we have another 12 applications. We've invited 5 of those to interview. That kicks off tomorrow, and then Monday and Tuesday of next week. So we're trying to accelerate this round, just knowing we are later in the school year, but excited by the possibilities. But we will wait for the right leader. It's a very special school, obviously, and we want to make sure we have a right fit. At last month, I gave sort of an interim update about smart clinics, but since then, the Warren Alpert Foundation has had their board meeting, and we have officially been approved to receive the grant money to ensure that the high school smart clinic, which will be operated by Blackstone Valley, is fully funded, so we're thrilled about that. And with our ongoing partnership with Blackstone today, we actually had a ribbon cutting for a mobile dental unit called the Molar Express. Very clever, but really neat. We'll be sure to share some photos of that. But students, the Molar Express will actually come to each of our 7 schools and provide dental care right on site. There's 2 full exam rooms within this Ronald McDonald House mobile unit, and it's going to be really incredible for our kids. Also want to celebrate, one of our values is around empowerment, and CF is one of the first districts in the state to participate in a great collaboration with the Institute for Labor Studies and Building Futures, as well as Rhode Island College. And 2 of our current TAs will be becoming apprenti, is that the plural?
Apprentices.
Apprentices,
Fourth declension.
to become teachers in the district. So just want to congratulate Miss Rosa and Miss Dolka for their amazing work. There was a lot of applicants, and they were the first 2 selected. Both have been incredible contributors to the district, and so we're so glad to support them. And then with our value of excellence, just want to celebrate some of our student athletes who competed in the Special Olympics, as well as some of our high school students who competed in a competition where a STEAM competition where they were awarded, they were second place for a device that they created to help people who are drowsy while driving prevent accidents. So that was so neat. And more excellence continued. We got to celebrate 2 other Central Falls High School students. One, Carmen Ayala, won the Young Leaders Award, and so she's pictured there with the treasurer. And then for the 2nd year in a row, we are so excited that the Pepito Foundation does this incredible opportunity for students to pitch an idea that could potentially get funded. And last year we had a finalist, and this year again we have a finalist from Central Falls High School. So congratulations to Kendra, and we'll find out soon if she moves on further to get scholarship award money, or even potentially $1 million to put her idea to work. And then my final slide, we talk about our habits of mind, and one of them is the world we want to see. And so just want to celebrate that those CTE programs that we were just talking about that are so many students are engaging in. We have had in 2 different pathways our first industry certifications completed. So this is really exciting, both in criminal justice as well as a biomedical cert. So students are not only graduating, but graduating with these incredible certifications to enter into the workforce and or build on as they're in college. So congratulations to everyone who has supported all of that. And those are my updates.
Questions? Hearing none. We have any board comment for our agenda? Announcements related to board activities or community activities? Hearing none. Our next meeting is Tuesday, June 24th. Looking forward to seeing you all there, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion? Motion made by Board Member Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Figueroa. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:23 p.m. and it is still light out. Thank you all for your dedication, patience, board members, staff for being here.
Thank you.
Couldn't do it without all of you.
Was not good. Was not good.